Welcome to another episode of Pitch Slapped. Uh, Today, Stefen is going to share another one of his brilliant story ideas. So, Stefen, take it away.
You're too kind, my friend. All right, so Dan, this is a property that we have talked about in a joking fashion, but I've been attached to the idea since we filmed our movie. Uh, uh, when this is over.
Yes.
So since that whole thing, right? So my thing is a pitch for Wolf Fist, right? So for starters, I'm gonna write it as a comic book, and then there's another version that we might shoot as a movie. So the comic book version follows. So firstly, this takes place in feudal Japan, which is a very interesting point in history. It takes place in the Sengoku Jidai era, right? Which is like when all the central government of Japan has failed, right? It's crumbled, which means all the provinces of Japan are presently fighting with each other because people want power, people want to remain free and out of the hands of others, and some just like bloodshed, right? So power, greed, and freedom and bloodshed. That's really what's going on here. So basically what goes down is Oda Nobunaga, right, is like the strongest daimyo, right, which like warlord. So he's going around trying to unite Japan, trying to take over all the provinces so he can become emperor and be shogun and some cool hybrid of the two. So that's okay. There's one province that's a thorn in his side, and that's called Iga province. This is where like ninjas come into play. Now, Iga province knows that Oda Nobunaga is planning an attack, right? His son and his brother are planning an attack because they have a spy network. They also know that they're drastically outnumbered. So, without anything left to do, they decide to turn their hopes to the gods, right? And one specific god whose name is Koki Raiju, which is a legendary lightning beast that takes the form of a wolf, right? Now the whole premise of this is for this god to inhabit their strongest warriors. So they perform a ritual where they put their strongest warriors, their most capable warriors up and offer themselves to this god to be the human incarnate. And after the ritual, what happens is instead of them getting bit, right, to become a werewolf, they get zapped by lightning. But I picture like it look real cool, like it's like a wolf running during here, then like bite, and then like when the moon is full, that kind of thing becomes a werewolf. So the warrior he has chosen is Oshan Kiyama, right? So Oshan Kiyama is now infused with the power of Koki Raiju, right, and is now Wolf Fist. Or Okami Ken, if you want the Japanese translation I got off of Google. But anyway, Wolfist and his men plan to meet Nobukatsu, who's Nobunaga's son, head on, right? They're going to set up an ambush attack and then, well, it's not head on. So they're going to try and ambush him, right? And beat him. Now, he should have the power of easily like 30 to 50 men now that he's infused with like a wolf god spirit. So that's fine. Now, in doing this attack, before Kiyama can get to Nobukatsu, right? His best friend is killed, right? Nobukatsu kills his best friend. We'll say his best friend's name is Haruto, right? BFF. So Haruto gets killed, and then that's when Nobukatsu dies at the hands of Oshan Kiyama. Oshan Kiyama kills him in wolf form, like rips his face off, something grisly, and he's dead. And then like they win the day, the Oda clan retreats, and that's fine. And then he goes to his friend Haruto, and as Haruto's dying, he says, please look after my family. Make sure they get out of Iga before they, come back. So that's okay. So then Oshan follows through on this promise. He takes Haruto's family. They go to America. Now we're going to pause right there. So they leave Japan, go to America. Now, Nobukane, who is Nobukatsu's uncle, is getting scolded and reamed out by Nobunaga, right? Because it's like, you let my son die. You were there to protect him, to train him, to teach him, and you let him die, right? And it's like, you are not welcome in the Oda clan until you can repay the blood you cost me, right? And curses him to become a vampire, right? So he has to walk the earth until he can, I guess I don't have this as much fleshed out, right? But what I guess is he has to replace the blood that he lost with his clan. So basically, he's got to pay for the death of his nephew. So that's okay.
That's cool.
Thank you. So that's fine. So now we leave feudal Japan, right? And we're in present day, right? And Kiyama has watched over Haruto's family for generations, right? Making sure they're okay, right? Doing what he promised. And I haven't decided if he's running a school, an after-school program, a restaurant, something like that, but low-key, right? Either in San Francisco or like New York. And Nobukane has developed a security system that's now kind of like the Ring, right? So trying to find this descendant of Haruto to right the wrong, right? Blood for blood. So ultimately, Nobukane finds Haruto's like great-great-granddaughter or something who is in attendance either at the school or frequents the restaurant that probably a school. Let's just say he owns a school. I'm thinking he might do like a karate school or some after-school program. Something mellow, people won't pay attention. They're like, oh, they're everywhere. That kind of thing. So with the security, he triangulates where she is, abducts the child, and then it's like he has to go and fight this old enemy and squash this ancient feud before the child is sacrificed and like the Oda clan rises up, and can take over the world.
That's cool.
Thanks, man.
No, seriously. What started out as sort of sort of a joke. Like, you've taken a lot of time to flesh out, what story there could be. I feel like you haven't taken shortcuts either. You've actually thought really deeply about. I don't know, just the entire story, like the origins and stuff. So I don't know. I'm impressed. I was not expecting this walking in. I knew of your pitch for the Wolf Fist movie that you did in When This Is Over, and I thought like that was like more comedy, and this is pretty epic. You know what I mean? So, pretty cool.
Thanks, buddy. So that's what we're going for like in like a comic book form. I think the movie, I know when Rob was on, I had like hinted at it to him and in other conversations. I feel like it would be more, probably a little bit more goofy, right? Like goofy, not like goofy like stupid haha, but more like, okay, let's see what's actually doable. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it would focus on like a karate student, which is, I guess it's more in line with the pitch from When This Is Over. And I think Charlie he actually does Taekwondo. So what we could do is, he's a Taekwondo student, he trains, and then like yesterday he mentioned like, hey, when do I get to show off my sweet karate moves? And it's like, oh, this is perfect, right? So we have him play Wolf Fist, and then I'm trying to get Rob to be like the bad guy, because he's an imposing dude, even though he's a gentle giant. You know what I mean? Like, he's big, right? And so basically on his way home from like karate, he gets bit by something, or possibly the lightning thing, right? He gets struck by, that might be hard to explain. He gets bit by something, and then instead of like eating stuff, he starts fighting crime in like his karate outfit, and ultimately he realizes like, oh, drugs are being pumped in the community by like the mayor, and they use the dojo or the pizza joint or the banks or whatever I'm allowed to film in, or the library. That's it. Drugs are pumped in the community through the library.
Makes sense.
Yes, it all makes sense. That's why everyone's checking books out, because there's cocaine in them. So that's the pitch. Yes. So he becomes a ninja werewolf who is fighting other ninjas and henchmen of an evil mayor who's pumping drugs in through the library of the small town.
Honestly, stuff. I really like both ideas. They obviously have different tones. But I don't know. I like them both, and I think both could work. And I know you could make that into a movie. So, and it sounds like Charlie might be a possible candidate for your main character. So.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm hoping he's down. Hopefully, COVID by then is like safer, or non-existent preferably. But yeah, like okay, so that's I'm gonna have to watch this video later to remember what I said. But yeah, so that's Wolf Fist, but like it's something that you and me developed when talking about when this is over, and it's just like that's such a cool, like beginning to it.
I have a question about like the wolf god.
Yeah.
Like, did you Google wolf god in feudal Japan? Like how did like did you know about that first and then like reverse engineered it, or like just tell me about that.
Oh no, so I had to do a lot of research on this,
Yeah.
like a lot of it. I didn't want to I didn't want the comic to be like cheesy, you know what I mean? Like I wanted it to be cool, but I also thought it'd be cool to incorporate like, the start of ninjas, right? So there's actually a dude on YouTube who breaks it down in like 5 videos, right? It's Feudal Japan. I think it was like Nobunaga Part 1, 2, and 3. I want to say it's by like IL Family or something. Family. I don't know the exact thing. I'll put a link in this video to him, but and he broke it down real smooth, in ways that people can understand about like the Iga province and ninjas and samurai and Oda Nobunaga. So it definitely takes like actual events, right, and then alters them, right, because when Iga falls, Nobunaga splits it in half and gives one half to his brother and one to his son. So like his son never dies. So that's like where it alters. But as far as like I looked up all like I typed in cool Japanese names, like first names and then family names, and like so that's where I got all of that. The whole hierarchy line, right? How it goes from the top of the pyramid, right, is the emperor all the way down to merchants. So like there are 8 slots. What a daimyo is, what a shogun is. It wasn't all Wikipedia. Like there's some actual primary sources, but yeah, I took notes like from all the videos. I had to look up the wolf god thing because there are a couple different. Well, there are mainly 2. So the 2 that are there, so there's Horku. I'm so apologize if I mess this up. There's Horku Kamyu, right, who is called the Howling God, the White Wolf God, or the Lord Wolf God. And the myth was that he mated with a goddess, and their offspring became the Anu people, which were like half wolf. But the legend that goes along with him talked about like how Haru Kamyu he lived on top of a mountain and helped humans with their problems like fire, diseases, disasters, that kind of thing. So what he would do is he would send one of his white wolves down the mountain to help people. And what they had to do was feed the wolf and not hurt it, and he would help them. But what people were doing was capturing the wolves and keeping them. So then that's when he like got pissed with humanity. So originally I always thought like, oh, maybe they pray to that guy, right, the great wolf god, and he sends a white wolf down and it bites one of their warriors. And I was like, okay, that's cool. But then you got this Koki Raiju guy, and he was a legendary creature. He's actually like the pet of a god, but like he's equally revered. And it's like, oh, he's like lives in lightning. Like storms would happen, and as the myth goes, then people would believe like, oh, that's the lightning beast. So getting lightning bit by a god wolf sounds way cooler, and more
Yeah,
like original. Like I haven't seen someone become a werewolf by getting zapped by lightning. I just think of Thor,
yeah.
you know?
No, I think that's really cool. I think that's cool. And honestly, I'm kind of, yeah. You've done a lot of really good research there, stuff, and really cool, really cool. It sounds like you must have been like really fascinated going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. Like no, Japanese mythology is very interesting. I think all mythologies are, really interesting, but the thing is like we don't learn enough about them, right? Unfortunately, like American mythology is like Bigfoot in the Alamo. Not like
Hmm.
like the Alamo didn't happen, it did, but like, oh yeah, they stood at the like that's like,
Yeah, we mythologize it. Yeah.
right. So I don't know. Plenty of other cultures I don't think get their just due with like, oh, we should know this. You know what I mean? Because then Hollywood like, downgrades it or manipulates it into something. Which I mean, it makes sense. It's cool stuff, but like people, like it's also cool just to know it. So there's still
Yeah.
more I should probably figure out and learn. But it's entertaining. It's not like a boring read or anything like that. Um, but you know, do you have any questions or suggestions on story or anything like that? Like,
No, no, I really don't. I, I don't have any like suggestions when it comes to like the story aspect of it. I think what I'm noticing from this conversation, it sounds like you took like great pains to like you're making something creative and original, but you're also like appealing to like original, like you're trying to like ground it in some kind of history and some kind of like culture. So it sounds like you're doing a lot of good stuff there. When you're not um like infantilizing that culture. So it sounds like, and it sounds like just based off of our conversation, like you just like deeply respect it too. You find it interesting, but you respect it as well. So yeah, I don't know. That wasn't so much like a suggestion as it was just like a. It sounds like you're on the right path, man. Uh, I I I really like the lightning wolf thing. Yeah, I really do. I think that is very creative. And I could see that like in some sort of like animated form too. Like I was thinking like picturing that in my head as like a Studio Ghibli sort of thing. I know like this is a bit more violent than a Studio Ghibli film, but I was just picturing that in that style, and I was like, oh yeah, like I could totally see it.
like Princess Mononoke,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, 100%. And I just think it's really cool. You know, I to be like I can't speak much to like the mythology of anything. You know what I mean? Because you are clearly the expert here. You know what I mean? Out of the two of us, so I'm all I have for you is encouragement. Like, keep writing it. Keep fleshing out your idea. It sounds like even down to like the present day, you have like sort of an idea of like how you want the story to go. So, in both the comic form and in like the movie. So, um,
Uh,
yeah, no, I really interesting stuff. Do you have any questions for me? You know,
yes, I do. So, in
okay.
terms of like, so Dan, when we've seen it, like either in books, comics, or movies, right? They say the line is right. Your hero is only as good as your villain, right? So I don't want like, because obviously everyone's rooting for Wolfist, right? Oshan Kiyama, right? That's the guy. But at the same time, it's like Nobukane, the dude who is the bad guy, he's kind of, he's got a cross to bear, right? It's not just like I'm bad to be bad. It's like, I gotta fulfill this blood thing because my nephew's dead and I've been cursed by my family. So like
Yeah.
in developing a villain, like not just like episode of the week villain, but like a substantial villain, what pieces of advice or suggestions would you have with that?
No, I think you're touching on a good point about, I mean, the character in general. Like it sounds like they have a purpose to fulfill. You know what I mean? Like they are sort of like um guided by a certain purpose that may be antithetical to your protagonist, right? So I think that's really that's the meat and bones of like kind of a good villain. I feel, like um, not even like a super bad villain. Like you could have something as simple as like two kids in a school.
Mm.
One bully and one kid who's being bullied. Um, and I don't know. That's the first thing that jumped to mind. I don't know. I'm appealing to like a show I've seen recently that I thought did a villain pretty well, Shadow and Bone, where it's like in a lot of circumstances the villain was correct, in their stance. Like they did foresee issues that were gonna arise. You they just had like a different way of dealing with them. So I guess I don't know. I think what I really am drawn to about your story, Stefan, is like both the protagonist and the villain seem like destined for these projects. One to protect this family, and one to hunt them down. You know what I mean? So um, there's a bit of like destiny entangled in there. It's not totally by free choice that they're doing these things, right? It's like they have a purpose to fulfill, So I don't know. I'm just I'm intrigued by that. And I thought that was really cool how you said, oh, it's not that fleshed out, but I like the way you phrased it too, like with the villain that's a vampire. How like basically they're cursed to be a vampire because they have to like get the blood. I forget how you phrased it. It was so much more eloquent than I could try to to wrap my head around. But I just thought it was an interesting. I thought it was an interesting twist on the werewolf vampire like antagonism like between those two species, which you see time and time again on TV. And I just thought your origin of that was really interesting, grounded in some history, some historical fiction. Yeah, I don't know. I am impressed, and I have only encouragement for you. That was not answering your question.
No, that's okay. No, you did, man. With the villain, and I appreciate your encouragement and all the positivity you're throwing my way. But no, I think okay. So you keep the villain like with his purpose, right? Like dealing with what he's charged with doing, right? Like don't paint him just like grim and angry. He has other emotions, right? And then like the whole idea of destiny, right? Like I feel like that's a line that can be played with. It's like whether you like it or not, we're entangled in this together. Something along those like the Joker, right? When he says like, without you, I'm nothing. You know what I mean? So it's like without this kid, I can't move on or whatever.
Right.
But no, so that's all solid advice. Then I guess real quick, like in the whole the film, right? Like our adaptation of it's obviously a different route of the character name for it rather, but like pumping drugs through the library, final showdown, dealing with his power, training, bad guys are making moves, doing bad stuff. He tries to like stop them. Bad guys are like, "Oh, this dude's a nuisance. We need to put an end to this." They fight, realizes who's in charge and where they're holding things, then goes, confronts bad guy, ends it. Does that seem like a pretty
Yeah, I mean, you you just like structured it out pretty well. You know what I mean? Like it, the movie sounds like comical, but it also sounds like a more traditional action movie. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Um, but when I guess it's not traditional because you got a werewolf thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I really think that structure works. You know, I say play with it.
Okay.
You know, the only thing I will say for like a movie adaptation is like, since you are, you know, since the comic version is like so steeped in like Japanese feudal culture, maybe for the movie instead of like, I don't know, I think maybe you detach yourself from that in the movie,
Okay.
especially if like you and your family are going to play the characters. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it's an
Um,
Italian guy instead of like a Japanese. Yeah, I got
right?
you.
Yeah, yeah. So just like just be aware of that. You know, in a comic, like you have I think a little bit more liberty, um, because you are literally designing the characters. You have to make use with the resources you have when you have a movie.
Yeah.
You know, so but you just think about the resources you have, but also think about like sensitivity to like Japanese culture. That's all. That's the only thing I have.
Well, I think, but that's important, right? Like on that note, right? So then, like, I 100% agree. I don't think I would touch on like Japanese culture or like make the character practice anything except like the jujitsu that he's doing.
Yeah.
Um, do you think that's like is that enough? Like, is that okay if there's no mention of feudal Japan, there's no mention of any of these gods or something? It's just straight up he was bit by something, kind of like Spider-Man. He's bit by a spider, you know, so on and so forth. Not that I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. No. No. I'm thinking. It sounds like a little bit like Spider-Man meets Daredevil. Like Spider-Man who has like Daredevil like esque abilities. You know. So like I can't speak to whether it's enough. It sounds like that is an option, and I think it's a valid option. You know what I
okay,
mean? Yeah. So I say just play around with it. Play around with it. See how it feels. Like which medium you think is better, or if you want to do both, like do both of them. You know what I mean? By all means. I think you have really two distinct visions of Wolfist here. So Wolfist, a howling good time.
howling good time. Oh man, I can't wait. And be on the lookout for when this thing is over, coming to you soon.
Soon.
But no, man, thank you for listening and for your advice on how to keep Nobukane from falling into like a one-dimensional character. And I think that whole idea of detaching, obviously if we're gonna backyard film this and it's like, oh, Charlie, Italian kid in white suburbia, like, yeah, you're not feudal Japan. Yeah, so we won't mess with that. But yeah, no, man, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening if you're watching. And I think that'll wrap it up for this episode.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. Stay gold. Stay tuned for another one.